lights, turn up the volume. You're on board with the Sportsline Podcast. It's May 1st. I'm Bubba O'Neil. Sports with Southern Ontario twist is certainly our thing, and we love chatting with the best in the business on and off the fields. And friends, if I've learned anything, regardless of the profession or place of employment, a master of many trades is always required for success. After learning the ropes at A Channel in the nation's capital, this Nova Scotia native made his move to the big city. At the Score in downtown Toronto, he stood out among a number of talented broadcasters. When the National Sports Network merged with Sportsnet, it all came together for Arash Madani. Folks, over a couple of weeks, Arash could be hosting a Blue Jays game in Toronto, covering a Super Bowl, or doing play-by-play at the Davis Cup in Europe. The really original, the expansive, he can do anything. Arash Madani joins us here on the Sportsline Podcast, and I'm proud to have you, brother.
I feel like I should be handing over hundreds here to you right now. I appreciate the introduction. I felt like I was kind of reading my obituary right there with all the different things, but I forgot about some of those things.
Well, you know what? You really have. When you look at your career, it amazes me. The amount of and the extensive amount of different, we had a guy here, Rod Black, okay?
Yeah.
You and Rod Black may be the most
versatile.
Okay.
Congratulations to Rod Black and the family.
Yes.
My boy, he said, opens with 2 hits last night in Milwaukee in his debut. That was just such an awesome moment for it to be captured live on the Brewers TV. So congrats to Rod and his fam. Sorry to interrupt.
No. So, and that is a wonderful moment for him. And he did talk about his son and the fact how proud he is and his kids and being involved in sports. And actually, he was there to actually see it. So that was a good thing. But, I think of people that, can be thrown in any seat and just here's the microphone, go. And you've always been one of those people and done it with such efficiency and grace and certainly with the knowledge as well, too. I got to throw this to you. Where did this love for sports come from?
I think from the beginning, honestly, Bubba, I was always into it. I was always interested in it. I was the guy who had the Sports Illustrated subscription, couldn't wait for Tuesdays after school to open it up. And I distinctly remember, I grew up worshiping the Showtime Lakers. They were like my team. And Magic and Kareem could do no wrong, And I remember Dick Stockton and Tommy Heinsohn were the play-by-play and color crew and for CBS in those days. And I just remember thinking, man, that is so cool that Dick Stockton is there on the court and he's getting to broadcast this game for everyone to listen to. Wouldn't it be cool if I could do that one day? And from a young age, that just kind of gripped me because I enjoyed the game so much. But then the Lakers were about the show, and those guys were a little part of the show too. And I'd learned something about my guys, Magic and Kareem, from them. And I'm like, man, that's something I'd love to do one day.
It's amazing to me that you picked it up at that young age and then went for it, because you're talking about an American sport, something that was so far away in being the Lakers.
Sure. When you're from Truro, Nova Scotia, LA is the furthest. The Fabulous Forum was the furthest place away from where we grew up. Yeah.
But then how do you translate it? Okay, I got to make the necessary steps to be the next Dick Stockton.
Well, there's just, as you know, there's so many different things that happen along the way. One thing that I've always done is I've always studied the industry. I'd study the people who are in it, what their backgrounds were, what they did, their stops on tour to get to the places they were at. And I'm very lucky, you and I share this in common, that our hobby and our career/profession, they intersect. For instance, last night I had the night off, quote unquote, but I'm watching the Knicks and the Sixers. I'm watching Tyrese Maxey put on that show, and I can't wait for Thursday night, even though I'm not, quote unquote, working that game. We're very fortunate in what we get to do. Now, there's a lot of reading and preparation and work that comes with it. Just on the drive out here, the entire time I'm listening to audio about the plan is I'm supposed to do the NBA Finals. I'm listening to NBA playoff audio. I'm listening to what was said on the podiums. I'm listening to the after stuff. I'm listening to the NFL draft postmortem. All those things, from time to time you take a break from it, but it kind of becomes all-encompassing. But when you like it, it makes it much easier.
Sweet thing. And you're in town right now because fulfilling more knowledge. Are you taking it? I think you're here for Forge FC.
I'm going to the Forge FC game tonight. First time I'm checking out the CPL, which I'm pumped about.
What is it about it that you wanted to check out? Like, why? I mean, there's some people that are still not sure about it, but it is a growing brand.
So, growing up in Nova Scotia, we always kind of thought, man, Halifax could be a pro sports town. Not naive enough to think it's going to be a major pro sports town. We knew that, the NFL, baseball, NBA were never coming there. But we always said, man, pro sports can work here. And then a few years ago, just before COVID, when the Halifax Wanderers launched, I'm like, man, and they're playing at the Wanderers grounds. It's downtown. It's got this fan base. I got to go check out a CPL game. I want to see what it's all about. And, then COVID hits, and then life gets in the way. And know a couple people at the CPL, and, tonight on the schedule, it worked out 1st of May. I'm like, let's do it. Let's go see what the league is. I just think it's so important, Bubba, to have leagues like the CPL. Because if not for them, how do people get opportunities anymore to work in sports? To be a Canadian, to have an experience of being in a front office or playing on the field or being an assistant coach or just getting those opportunities. It's harder and harder to break in. And, I think when you think about the Canadian sports ecosystem, the more leagues like the CPL, the CEBL, the CFL, the better.
You just said a key word for me, and I know you don't need me to stick up for you on social media, but I've done it a couple of times.
Oh, you have? Okay, thank you.
I've done it a couple of times.
What about?
Well, I think there was one time you said, "Hey, Bubs, don't never mind." Like, there's a belief among some people out there that you hate. I'll use the word hate the CFL in favor of the NFL, and I have to tell people every once in a while, no, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Why is there that thought out there?
I've thought about this. I think first and foremost today, in 2024, news, sports, entertainment, whatever, what people hate the most these days is the truth. They hate the truth being told to them. They hate somebody holding them accountable for the things that go on and the things that happen. And with the shrinkage of mainstream media, there are fewer and fewer of those voices out there, fewer and fewer voices that are not connected in some way, shape, or form to any league or any franchise or any team, and who don't have their paychecks kind of tied to that. So when you have people who really dislike the truth, and the truth is said out loud, it bothers them.
Is it because you challenged the commissioner of the CFL?
Yeah.
Is it because, I mean, let's be honest, the CFL, and I love the CFL. I'm involved with the Ticats. Your background before television was with?
Yeah, Ottawa and Winnipeg. You and I worked together on CFL preview shows back in the day at Sportsnet. Yeah.
Yes.
I cover the Grey Cup every year. Yeah, sure.
So you love the league. You understand what it's worth and where it can be. And let's be honest, sometimes it falls short.
Well, oftentimes it falls short.
Right.
And think about, let's look at the landscape of pro sports, period. Right? The CFL had, give or take, a 50, 70-year head start on, say, MLS. And look at the valuation of MLS franchises today compared to CFL franchises. And I know they're not apples and apples, but that was the league that Mark Cohen, the commissioner 2 times ago, always compared the CFL to. Where's the growth? Where's the vision? Where's the plan? They talk a lot. They say a lot. They don't deliver or perform on very much of it. And, the unfortunate part is so much of this is just smokescreen from them, distraction of bringing things up like global expansion, and we're going to move out east to Halifax and all these. Well, show me, show us, show your fans. When in reality, in most markets, and overall, attendance is down and viewership is down, and the thing's not growing.
You're close still to people out east. And when we've been hearing about a Halifax, or at least something in those provinces, whether it be St. John, whether it be Newfoundland, St. John's, like, is it going to happen?
No. It's just the fact that they're not playing a game in Halifax this year is telling.
I'm always hearing that there's a group out there.
Well, if there was, wouldn't something have happened by now after these games in Wolfville, after these games in Halifax, after these games in Moncton? Where is it? Where's the announcement? Where's the plan? Where's the stadium? Where's the venue? Who is the owner? Why aren't you playing there this year, and why are you going to Victoria? I mean, I wasn't a geography major, but Victoria seems a little far away from the Halifax pier.
But yet we have successful franchises, and Winnipeg being one of them.
Yeah.
I think right here in Hamilton we have something going on.
Absolutely.
That's something to be proud of as well too. On the other side of it.
Yeah, and I think the franchise right now, when I look kind of across the board, and I don't want to say it's a miracle because they've worked at it, but what's happened in Vancouver is amazing.
That's a good call.
Because what Amar Doman has done, comes in as owner, he didn't look at it as the Vancouver Lions or the Lower Mainland Lions. For him, almost from the jump, it was the BC Lions. He's offering buses from places 3-4 hours away to come to games. There is outreach throughout BC for people to come in. There is a buzz, there is real growth and sustainable things happening instead of just, so often the CFL feels like they're cramming for a final exam and they just want to put people in the seats and say, look, we did it. They're really building something there in a market where the Seahawks had fully taken over. Now the Lions are kind of pushing back a little bit. And in a market that just seemed dead for pro football. I think what's happened in British Columbia is just amazing with that ownership group.
Yeah, and they've got a beautiful building in there. Games look good. The uniforms look good. Heck, I mean, starting the season
They're winning a few games.
Winning games.
Yeah.
We've got an exciting quarterback. Even starting the season with a LL Cool J concert.
Sure.
Like
just outdoors, downtown.
Yeah.
On Robson Street, shutting down streets, make it a destination, make it a thing. Those are the things you need to do. A lot's changed in sports over the last, 20, 25 years. But from the CFL standpoint, 20 years ago, one of the now former owners of the Ottawa franchise, he told me something that stuck with me. He said, "We are a league where you have to sell tickets 2 by 2." And it's true. And selling tickets 2 by 2 is hard. It is not easy. You have to roll up the sleeves and just continue to knock on doors and make phone calls and do all those things. I find that so often teams are just looking for the easy way out. And there is no easy way out regardless of the league, because more than ever now, we have options. I had to tell a GM once, not involved with football at all, that you are not competing against other pro sports franchises in this city for eyeballs and for attention. You're competing with the Cottage, you're competing with concerts, you're competing with patios, you're competing with the theater. You are competing with people's disposable money and their time. And these days, disposable money is less and less, and time is less and less. And so, going to a ball game, going to a hockey game, going to a football game, a soccer game, your competition is, okay, somebody's bank account, somebody's clock, but also just what else can I spend my evening doing? And there are fewer and fewer hardcore fans of certain teams and certain sports. It's really a night out. It's something to do. And that's why I think the mind has to shift a little bit when it comes to how pro sports teams, regardless of league, really go after fans.
One more with the CFL, and if you don't want to talk about this, please tell me.
Sure.
There's an ongoing lawsuit with the Toronto Argonauts and their quarterback, who is the reigning most outstanding player of the year. And we've heard a little bit. I know details are very few. It's something that's going on. A legal process is being conducted right now. Are you okay with the way the league and the Toronto Argonauts have handled this situation?
So this news broke in February. The news broke in February because there was a lawsuit filed by the now former assistant strength coach of the Argos. February. And it was in February that the commissioner of the Canadian Football League announced that an investigation would be had, and once the investigation was complete, they'd make a ruling. February. Now, it's now May, and it's been crickets. And you want a thorough investigation. You want all those things. So I've reached out to some people who handle things like this, investigations like this, who know nothing about pro sports. And I've asked them, look, this is basically the scenario. This is the situation. Employee 1 alleges this against employee 2. A number of different employees exist in that building. A number of different employees are on those buses, etc. They said, okay. I said, just roughly, how long should an investigation like that take? And depending on who you ask, some would say as little as 2 weeks, and some would say as many as 4, based on the parameters and the number of people involved, etc. I did not talk about anything to do with Chad Kelly being the star player. I did not talk about Chad Kelly and what has happened when he was at Ole Miss and whose DMs he was sliding into in 2016 and what happened after the Broncos drafted him, etc., nor his social media activity since. So I ask you this, Bubba. If you are a female working in professional football, which is a pretty alpha male existence, what are you thinking? What do you think the league has your back? What happens if something like this occurs in season? Then what? And look, I've been told that there are some female staff members who worked at the league office who expressed concerns with how this whole thing was handled. They weren't pleased with it. And effectively a dismissive memo came out, internally and said, we got this. And at least a couple of those employees have left.
Wow.
So look, should it be handled differently and better? Yes. But I just wonder, if this wasn't a star player, and if this wasn't a Toronto player, how different may all of this be? Because I invite you to Google Teague Sherman and Jerome Messam, because the moment there were allegations and charges, they were released, and the commissioner said, we are not going to register their contracts. But now the most outstanding player in the league is involved in a city in which the CFL has made no qualms about being very important for us to succeed in Toronto, and here we are where we are.
Should he attend training camp? Should he be allowed to attend training camp, which is in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think players are starting to report this weekend. Look, the fact that this hasn't been resolved is the issue. Because look, there's a collective bargaining agreement that hinges here. The CFL also has a violence against women policy. My question is, how much had been going on that people in the building with the Argonauts may have or may not have known about? And if that hadn't been reported, what then? Kelly's now come out and denied all these allegations in a civil suit. But these aren't criminal charges. So it's funny where the league and the commissioner flex and where they don't.
Stuff.
Oh, your boys, huh? The Maple Leafs, huh?
Not my boys.
Hey, come on.
Not my boys. Okay. I know I don't want to date this podcast because I love this to live forever, but as we stand right now, the Maple Leafs have somehow come back and made this a series, down 3-2. What we saw in Game 5, was that just a make good for the lack of effort, the horrible show we saw in Game 4, or are we on the verge of seeing the Boston Bruins being the first team in professional sports history to blow a 3-1 lead in a best-of-7 series in back-to-back years?
So is that a pillow or a punching bag? That's my question. I have a question for you, because, like I said, I grew up in Nova Scotia. I was not a Leaf fan. Why are, and I kind of know the answer to this question, why and how do the Maple Leafs remain a punchline for generations? Is it because there's no color photograph of them with the Stanley Cup? Is that why? Is it like honestly? Like you have such joy when you just describe their Game 4 no-show. What is it about this team?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It is amazing to me because, I mean, I'm a Sabres fan, and I grew up a Sabres fan deep in my heart, and always will be, and it's been horrible, right? And I laugh at Leaf fans because at least in my lifetime, I've seen the Buffalo Sabres at least get to the Stanley Cup twice. Once as a youngster and one fairly recently.
Yes.
They haven't even done it. They haven't even gotten there. And then, as Rod was talking about a couple of days ago when he was on the set, how on earth is it possible that it's been 31 years since a Canadian team has even been in the Stanley Cup?
Yeah.
Is this a Gary Bettman thing? Is this Canadian teams are not that good? Like, what is it?
It's a great question. I was in Ottawa in 2007 when the Senators got to the Cup. That was a really good team. Heatley was a 50-goal scorer. Spezza was just taking off in his career.
Beat my Sabres.
Alfredson was in his prime. They beat him pretty good, too.
6.
Yeah. And won there. I think they clinched the...
In Buffalo. In overtime.
But, Anaheim was a better team that year. Fine. There have been teams that have knocked on the door since, like the Canucks. It was a coin flip, right? Game 7, whatever. It's fascinating.
It's crazy.
People say there's pressure to play in Toronto. No, there's not. It's kid gloves here. You want pressure? Go to Philadelphia. Even
New York.
Go to New York. You want pressure? Go play football in Dallas. Not hockey in Toronto. These guys get a free pass. They do.
They do. And I think that's why the vitriol on social media, this is the first time I ever see, it's the first time I think I've ever heard Kelly Rudy criticize anyone. He ripped Marner pretty good.
Yeah. Well, at some point here, they're not kids anymore. Wasn't Nylander, if you could read lips, wasn't that wonderful? This isn't bleeping junior hockey, bro. Bro. And honestly, Willie, not many junior hockey players do that either. Mm-hmm. You want to be with the big boys, you got to play like it and act like it. And this is what's fascinating as we sit here on the first day of May. What's going to happen this off season, right? And Will Thursday night, Game 6 and or Game 7, how much can that change narratives and plans? We're 2 years removed from, we got respect in the handshake line. We're 2 years removed from, we made progress because we didn't lose by as many goals this year as we did last year. We're a year removed from, we won a round, so all the problems are solved. They're wasting they're wasting the career of a 70-goal scorer. It's wild.
Keith Pelly going to make a change?
I'm interested to see look, Keith's going to make some changes for sure, right? I just wonder how this is all going to unfold, what the timeline is going to be like. You look at what do you change?
The coach is going to get whacked.
Sure. Yeah. But that's okay. The coach is going to get whacked. Great. But you bring somebody new in and maybe things change. But from where I sit, this is not a head of MLSE thing. This is not. This is if they lose in 6 or 7, the core isn't working. The structure of paying basically 5 guys, the majority of your cap, 4 up front and 1 on defense, isn't working. And so your salary structure has to change with the guys on the ice before anything else.
It has to. I'm going to say, especially for our basketball fans, and I know you love the sport, I'll say 3 letters, and you can just run SGA. You got up and close and personal with him last summer.
Well, I was close to him, not personal. This is what. So first of all, Shai is, and I'm not saying this because I'm sitting in Hamilton saying this. And yes, I have a Canadian passport, but I genuinely believe this. Shai is a top 3 player on the planet today. And I don't think there's an argument to be had about that. What's amazing about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is that over and over and over and over and over again, in the biggest moments, when it's all on the line, this dude continues to deliver, continues to perform. When's the last time you said this about a pro athlete? There's never an off night for him.
No, it's consistent. It's 30 a night.
Every night.
Every night. And
then in the 4th quarter with the game on the line, he just continues to deliver. But you said up close and personal. Yeah, I was up close. Our setup was between the hoop and the bench. I was around every practice. I was around every game. And other than one sit-down interview and just, walk-off interviews, there was very little I got to know about Shai. Shai is a very private, guarded person. And I learned more about him in a Ramona Shelburne ESPN story about him and his mom and the family than I did being around him. But man, what a competitor.
But do you think that's because of his personality, or do you think that's on purpose, keeping just little distance?
I don't think anything with Shai is by accident. I don't know enough about him to know kind of what it is, but you think about the top 3 players in the league today. Jokic and I guess Embiid and now Shai, or even if you put Giannis in there, whatever. If I'm starting a team today, there is no player that I would want more on my team to start a franchise with than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
We've been talking about, you talk about this team that's going to participate in the Olympics. Jamal Murray and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the backcourt.
It's pretty good. Best backcourt in the world? Yeah. Well, here's what's interesting. You have Jamal and you have Shai, and you're down 1 with 5 seconds to go. Who gets the ball? What a great problem to have for Jordi Fernandez, huh?
Excuse me. It's amazing to think how far we've come with this sport. Because we're going to really compete this year in Paris. There is expectation for the first time ever.
Yeah, and we're going to cut NBA guys. We're going to cut legit players. The issue going into Paris is going to be size. We just, 7-footers don't grow on trees, although there's a 7'7" kid from Quebec named Olivier Rioux, who's going to the University of Florida next year. But there are expectations going into Paris, there's no question. But my biggest takeaway from being around the national team last year at the World Cup was how much these guys bought in, was how much they wanted to play for one another, how badly it was about we and not me. Mm-hmm. Like, dudes actually cared. Like, it almost felt like you were back in high school or like college. This wasn't about my minutes. This wasn't about my points. This wasn't about me getting mine. This was about whatever it takes for us to win. And that was awesome to see, because in pro sports, especially professional basketball, you rarely see that.
When we've rarely seen that in the Canadian basketball, as a nation and as an association where people and players for years, I don't want to play. For whatever the reasons were, and there were numerous reasons over about 2 decades. So to see it completely flipped, to me, is just outstanding. So here we go. Let's see what happens from here on in. I like to do this every once in a while. Excuse my throat here.
Yeah.
I call it picture time.
Picture time.
And you can just react as how you may, because I'm sure there will be a story or at least something that you would think about this person. So let's drop picture number 1, please, and then you can just go with what you want to say.
Oh, God. You're the worst. That's 2004 Ottawa. In the stands at Frank Clair Stadium. They actually bulldozed those stands down. Maybe it has to do with that photo. Maybe not. Oh, you're the worst. Nice job. Nice find.
That's a young. That's not that you're not young now.
That's 2004, 2005, something like that. That's 20 years ago. Oh, boy.
Looking good, though.
Thanks, bud.
Again, you do like football. Who's this guy?
Yeah, that was A Channel days. That's probably 2007, 2006, 2007. They actually made me take that shirt back. They had the shirt just for the photos, and they're like, by the way, we're going to need that golf shirt back. I still remember that. That was a good welcome to TV moment. Oh, man, the Bills in Toronto. Remember that run?
I remember,
yeah.
But I always think about this, and you might not remember this. And I was telling our friends here at CHCH, this story not that all that long ago about Arash Madani and myself and you and the Bills in Toronto series.
Yes.
And you remember how we would get a player coming every week of those home games, coming to the studio. And how Marshawn Lynch came once, and how we had the guys do promos, and hey, this is Sportsnet Connected at the time, and I'm some Marshawn Lynch, and how Marshawn did not want to do anything
except somebody slid him a $20 bill.
Dan Berlin.
It was a Dan Berlin? Okay. And then Dan thought he was getting the 20 back, and Marshawn's like, hey, bro. The Oakland side of Marshawn came out that day.
I'll never forget it. Dan was so upset. He couldn't get any Swiss Chalet for dinner.
He couldn't get any Swiss Chalet for dinner.
So I would have to help him out. That particular
T.O.?
night.
Remember when T.O. came to...
Yes.
T.O. and T.O.? That was a thing? Oh, man. If they had a quarterback in those days, because it was like
Trent Edwards,
J.P. Lawsman was in the mix. Yeah, it was just...
Think about that. They moved up so far to get that cat out of Tulane.
Yeah,
Tulane, I believe.
Right.
Disaster. Okay, let's go to the pictures here of him, Arash, with somebody. Let's go to this.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Oh.
I actually sent this photo. So it's a photo of myself, Greg Millen, and now the late Bob Cole. That is taken in the lobby bar in Glendale, Arizona, after a Coyotes against somebody hockey night game. And Bob would rarely come down. Bob was I stay in the room after games, but he would only drink Captain Morgan Dark, not Spice, not white. So he had to bring it because they don't sell Captain Morgan Dark in the States. Mm-hmm. He would bring it along with him. And you always knew if Bob was interested in having a post-game libation if he would be down in the locker room area and he'd ask the equipment guy for a couple of cans of Coke. And so we saw Bob down there. So Millsy and I were sitting in the lobby afterwards, and I said, "You think Bob's going to come down?" He said, No, Bob never comes down. But then he came down with the drink in hand. We had a great chat. One of the true career thrills. The first game I ever worked with Bob Cole was game one, week one of the Sportsnet getting the Hockey Night package. Right. We were doing a game in Tampa. I don't know who it was against, doesn't matter. But I can still hear his voice in my earpiece, in my IFB. Let's go down to Arash Madani. And Bob, I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, Bob Cole knows my name. Pretty damn cool.
It is an amazing moment. And I talked to Rod Black about something very, very similar, about having Rod, when, I don't know if you remember this, when I used to do the update games, the update at Sportsnet.
Okay.
When I would do the in-between commercial or in-between periods, and having Rod Black, when he was calling Raptor games,
sure,
throw to me for highlights.
Right.
And Jim Hewson doing the same thing. Because remember, we were regional at the time, and I would do those regional games, and that's how I got to know Dodd Taylor real well. But we would, once a week, I think it was Tuesdays, we had the national package.
Sure.
And having the likes of like Simmer and Jim Hewson, and in between the second period, let's go down to Bubba O'Neil for the. I'm like, what?
What? Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Beautiful moment. Next picture, please.
Oh man, my guy Glennie Mack.
This one hurt.
Yeah, this one hurt. So that is taken fall of 22. November, we were at the tailgate lot in Orchard Park before the Vikings-Bills game that the Vikes won in overtime.
Oh, that wild game.
The
You were
Justin
there.
Jefferson
You
catch.
were there. Wow.
Glennie and I became colleagues in 2007, and we became instant friends. We lost him this year to pancreatic cancer just a couple of months after his diagnosis. As loyal a friend as you'll ever find, as loyal a colleague as you'll ever find, was set to produce another Olympic Games this summer over at the CBC, was working at Anthem, producing features and fights over there. A husband, a dad, and one of the absolute best. One of the giants in the sports media industry. It's so funny because in this day and age, we're not supposed to acknowledge that people work at other networks. Like it's almost like we.
Yes.
Well, Sportsnet people don't talk about TSN people and CBC people, whatever. When Glennie died, the entire sports media industry wrapped their arms around him. Andy Petrillo did a beautiful tribute. Ivanka did something. Carolyn Cameron did something. McAuliffe did something. A lot of people kind of talked about, because he had an influence on a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And he really cared about people, which these days is really appreciated more than ever.
When the Score merged with Sportsnet and people like yourself and Glennie Mack came over, Glennie Mack and I did not get along very well.
Okay.
Which is very rare.
Yeah.
As I would find out. I still to this day couldn't tell you why. We just didn't.
Sure.
And then one day he came up to me and said, let's shake this out.
Yeah.
And we sat and we talked. And then that's when I realized what a good guy this is.
Just a great dude.
A great dude. And was when I made this move to come to CHCH, was one of the first people to write me an email and wish me luck. And then
he meant it, Bubba. He meant it. That's the thing. Yeah. Like it came from such a good place. He really, really cared about his people. And it's funny. This weekend, I'm hosting a diversity in sport conference in Mississauga, and I got a message from his wife, Andra, and she said, I saw you're hosting this on social media. Glennie would probably say, hey, go crush it. You'll do great. And since he can't, I will. And I was just like, man, ain't that the truth? Yeah. So we lost just, like, not just a great production and television and broadcast person.
No, he had all that. That's
just an awesome
man,
fella.
Good man. Good man. Speaking of good man, let's check out this dude.
Uh-oh. Justin Dunk. Your boy, for the record. I did get Justin Dunk into tennis, by the way. I'm the reason. I'm responsible for it.
I hear you spank him pretty good.
Hey, I will not confirm or deny. But that is accurate. It's great because he's so competitive, and he gets so angry on the tennis court when he loses. But Dunk's a beauty. Talk about a guy who really has worked at his craft. You can see why he was a high-performance athlete. And based on his behavior on the tennis court, I can also tell why he was a hothead who got, did what he did on the football field. He would
admit to that he just wants to win.
Yes.
But it's part of that drive that's made him such a success in what he does right now. And I'll tell you, from his, I think, probably 3-4 years here, I saw a guy that knew this much, to this much, and was never afraid to ask a question, was never afraid to try something, or whether it worked or it didn't.
Want to learn, wants to get better as a sponge.
I always have a lot of time for that guy, and it's great to see him do so well. Mm-hmm. And I knew you were good buddies with him.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And I know you always talked about the tennis courts, and I can't beat him.
Which is great, because he's such a terrific athlete, right?
Yes.
So the fact that you can beat him is just awesome.
One more thing, I wish will you come back? Like, I hope you can come back another time. I just got one more for you before we call it a day. Arash, as I said off the top, I remember there was a week. I think you did a Blue Jays game one day. And then within the same week, I think you were covering maybe the Bills. I can't remember. You were all over the place. But all I know is somehow you ended up doing a Davis Cup match in Beirut or somewhere. You were all over the place. And I was like, how does this guy do this? And that's why you're a national reporter at Sportsnet. You've done so much over this time. And I'm sure been feeling real fortunate to do what you've done.
Incredibly fortunate.
Is there a number one? Is there something that will always stick with you?
There is, and it's not necessarily a great end to the story, but in 2012, the Canadian national men's soccer team, we broadcast all their games in the qualifying in the lead up to the World Cup, and we don't need to get into Canada Soccer's backstory and how, hadn't been to one since '86, whatever. But effectively, it came down to this. On a Friday, they played at home against Honduras, and then on Tuesday, in San Pedro Sula, Honduras. And Canada drew Honduras 0-0 on a cold Friday night at home, where they should have won 1-0, and then they'd be through. But had to go to San Pedro Sula, Honduras to play on a Tuesday there. I think in like October, November, something like that. October. And so we arrive, and it's 38 degrees Celsius plus the humidex. We are literally in the murder capital of the world per capita. We arrive at the stadium. There's barbed wire everywhere. This is on training day. The little tunnelway to get onto the field is dark and dank, and the fans the next day would end up just pounding on this like tin can, and it's so dark, and all you see through the crack of sunlight is barbed wire. And the next day, there's 38,000 people in a 32,000-seat stadium. There's no scoreboard. There's no clock. But there's riot police walking around the track. And 3 hours before the match, the whole place is yelling, Honduras, Honduras. As the Canadian players are warming up, bags of piss, like bags full of urine, are being thrown at them. And I'm like, where are we? What is this? Like, it's the biggest match in Canadian men's soccer since 1986, and this is the stage. And myself, cameraman Mario Fontana, who you know, our field producer was Chris Black. We had a technical producer, the late Blair Tetro, God bless him. He comes over to me. I mean, we are all pouring sweat, right? He comes and he puts his hands on my shoulders and he said, "Buddy, here's the deal." Oh, and they shut down all cell phone service because the gang war is going on. He puts his hands on my shoulders and he said, "Here's the deal. We have no talkback. We have no monitor. We have no communication to you. But I'll be able to communicate to Mario because I'm able to get 2 wires, one for the camera, one for audio to Mario, up through a banana tree into our quote-unquote truck, which was a minivan." God bless Blair. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And Canada lost 8-1.
Oh, yes. That's right.
And I remember we get to the airport. We're flying back on the team plane. And I just remember, and we get to the airport, and the 4 of us were like, all right, whatever Honduran money we have, it was an afternoon game, let's just spend it on beer. We put it in a pillowcase, take it up onto the plane. You know, comfortable cruising altitude. It's a pretty quiet plane. You know, we each crack one. I look over, I'm like, guys, would we have made it if Canada won?
It's true.
And I actually felt PTSD from that day, like, you know, the next day and the day after, but I will never forget that. 8-1, and we made it to air because of a couple of wires through a banana tree. So I don't know, whatever else happens in my career, Bubba, nothing can top that.
Well, Arash, we certainly look forward to, and I know I speak for many, look forward to, you know, seeing you cover whatever comes your way. You do it so well, with class. You always do it right, as we say. You do it right. And Sportsnet's really lucky to have you. I always thought that back then in the day.
I appreciate that,
but I was like,
man.
Look at this guy. This guy is, you know, I'm a little older than you. And I'm thinking, man, this guy is a beauty. And it is amazing for me from the outside now to see how much you've done. They certainly value you there, and I know sports fans do as well too. And I appreciate you coming into the Hammer and checking us out.
Yeah, man,
there.
great to see you. Great to be here. And as somebody who used to watch the game of the week, the OUA game of the week in Nova Scotia, we got CH, Ken Welsh, Paul Hendrick, coming in, seeing some of the old artifacts. It's pretty cool. I mean, this station is part of the reason I became such a fan of university sports. You guys and Chris Flynn running around playing quarterback for St. Mary's.
Chris Flynn, that's a beauty.
Yeah, so it's really cool to be here and kind of brings it all full circle.
You'll come back?
Yes, sir. Anytime.
Thanks, bud.
Great to see you, bud.
Folks, that's your Sportsline podcast for the day. And as you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports, especially with people like Arash. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline podcast, do want to hear from you. Please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. And if you do have something to say, let's hear it. Please comment. For the wonderful people that make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you so very much. And we'll see you tomorrow.